the privilege of introducing some other supporters, also are great leaders and represent our city. Albany, Deputy Majority Leader in the State Senate, Mike Gianaris of me, and Assembly Member Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Folks, we are facing a unique and unprecedented moment in the history of New York City right now. And we need a unique and unprecedented leader to help navigate the choppy waters we're in. And that person is Maya Wiley. This is a time like no other. One thing we know for certain is that we cannot handle New York City the way it's always been done before. This is not a time for business as usual. This is a time to take this difficult period and make sure it works for everybody. And that is what Maya's campaign is all about. An economic recovery that works not just for the wealthy few, but for all New Yorkers, working people throughout the 5 boroughs. A housing policy that works not just for the developers, but for the tenants who are struggling to pay their rent in this critical moment when the economy is suffering. And someone who knows from her own experience throughout her career that we must stand up for those oppressed by authority throughout the years, not scapegoat them to make other people feel safe. And when we're talking about doing something different, Maya's experience and career makes clear that she knows the policy, but she also personifies that change. We are sitting here in New York City of all places. We pride ourselves on our diversity. And yet, in the history of this great city, we have had 1 mayor of color for 1 term and 0 female leaders of our city. That ain't right. And Maya Wiley's going to change that once and for all in 2021. I am proud to be standing here on the first day of this campaign and speaking to all of you in support of a great person who I've gotten to know extremely well and I'm proud to support. And I know that this movement is going to grow by the day, by the month, and as we roll into next June and next November, we're going to come together again. Hopefully, we'll be able to congregate with a lot more people in safety and celebrate Maya Wiley's election as the next mayor of New York City. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Blake. I'm a 3rd-term Assembly member in the Bronx and Vice Chair of the DNC, but today my title is Friend of the next Mayor of New York City, Maya Wiley. Maya is uniquely, unequivocally, and substantially prepared to be the mayor of the greatest city in the world. Me as a man, as a black man, as an elected official, a son of labor and a child of God, I proudly endorse Maya to be our next mayor. Maya comes from a civil rights legacy that shaped her core. Like our next president, she didn't shrink after a tragic loss in her life, but rather committed more to the people. From her work in civil rights to the Center for Social Inclusion, Maya is ready for the moment. From her time in the city where we worked together to increase access to capital for our minority women-owned businesses, Maya is ready for the moment. For her demanding justice when she led the Civilian Complaint Review Board, Maya is ready for the moment. We know here in New York how to make herstory. From an Attorney General to the chair of the U.S. House Small Business Committee to a U.S. Senator. And that reflection now comes today when we're excited when we make herstory once again next year when Maya Wiley becomes the mayor of New York City. Maya often jokes that she is the big sister I never wanted. I always say she is the big sister that I love. And when I was on my way here, my mother was calling not to ask me about me, but to ask about Maya and Joe Biden, which is all she wants to do. At this moment in time, we need transformational leadership. We don't need easy, we need to do what's right. We don't need traditional, we need transformation. To my fellow men, it's time to say that you're a man and a feminist at the same time. my fellow Democrats, we can't keep saying that black women are the backbone of our party, but you won't support them to be mayor of New York City. To my fellow people, we know when we have a woman who is empowered and supported and selected, we all succeed, and we understand that it's our time to end the injustice and the racism and sexism that existed in New York City, and have someone in Maya who is that leader and that friend. So to my fellow Bronxites, it's time that we are not always on the outer borough, but be in the inner sanctuary of the opportunity. To our criminal justice allies, we need a mayor who believes in community and will not turn her back on us. For too long, we keep saying, say her name, and I can't wait to say her name as Mayor Maya. We need someone who's a mayor that's going to ensure that PPE gets to the people, who supports our entrepreneurs of color, who supports us every single day. To the unions, to those that are out here as people of faith, you believed in me, and I believe in her, and we should all believe in Maya. So I say this. The scripture is Esther 4:14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Well, next year, we're going to make sure we swear in a black woman as vice president. And in 2022, we're going to raise her up to a royal position as Mayor Maya Wiley. God bless you.
Only back for a moment to introduce Councilmember Helen Rosenthal and Steve Levin. Thank you for joining us.
I don't know. Let's see how it goes. I feel pretty tall. Yeah, this is good. Well, my name's Helen Rosenthal. I'm a member of the City Council, represent the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I'm just so overjoyed to be here today in support of Maya Wiley for mayor. Breath of fresh air. How do I know that? Well, you know, for some of you, you may know that we've been having an issue on the Upper West Side with homeless who are in temporary shelter in a hotel. And interestingly, things were a little rough at the beginning, but then they settled down. But then the mayor got a phone call from Randy Mastro, and he took it, picked up, said, yep. And Randy said, I want to empty out that hotel. We don't want to see the people who live in there, and we want you to move them out. Don't care where, just move them out. The mayor put down the phone, and just like that, it happened. It happened. It's stunning. There's absolutely no good reason, but now 240 men who were living on the Upper West Side in a temporary shelter are being moved to another hotel. So when Maya Wiley came and said, Helen, I'd like to meet some of the men in the hotel, there were no cameras, there was no press. Maya came when we held a candlelight vigil for the men. She came and she met with them. She went inside, she talked to them. She stood out and mingled with everyone else at our candlelight vigil. And when she did get in front of the press, she said what is true to the person that everyone has just described, which is what is in her gut. And she said, if Randy Mastro were to call when I'm there, I would tell my staff to take a message. Which is the right answer. Which is absolutely the right answer. And some of you may be reading the Post and think that the Upper West Side want somebody who's going to take Randy Mastro's call. But I can tell you with my lived experience, when I had the opportunity to stand up on a principled position, and there were loud people who did not like what I was saying or doing, the voters turned out. And Upper West Side voters voted for the person who stood for what's right, who stood for and had a principled position. You know, Maya's running for mayor, and my goal is to make sure the Upper West Side has the highest turnout it's ever had, and all those votes are going for Maya Wiley.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Levin. I want to thank my colleague in the City Council, Helen Rosenthal, my colleagues in State Government, Assemblyman Blake, Senator Gianaris. I'm really excited and honored to be here today for the launch of Maya's campaign for mayor. I've been in the City Council for almost 11 years, and my time in government, I think that one thing I can say for sure is that there's going to be interests, there's going to be controversial issues, there's going to be passions on all sides at all times. But if you can hold true to yourself, if you can hold true to your values, if you can hold true to who you are, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. If you tell the truth to the people, you can never go wrong. I think that we're seeing that played out on a national scale right now. And Senator Harris said that last night in the debate. The people deserve to hear the truth. And everything in Maya's career and everything in her life demonstrates that she has that core, that principled core, that she's willing to stand up and speak truth to power. She's willing to take on unpopular positions. She's willing to take on the tough jobs. You can see by leading the CCRB. Couldn't get a more politically fraught position in the city of New York. She took that on with real principle. And that's the kind of leadership that we can expect in Maya, and that's the kind of leadership we need in our next mayor. We are in a generational crisis in this city. Generational crisis. We have seen hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers out of work. We have an unemployment rate of over 15% in this city. We have record numbers of people lined up at soup kitchens, food pantries. We have a record number of people applying for SNAP benefits. We have our children, one day to the next, we don't know if they're going to be in school. We have outbreaks happening now in the fall. We need a leader who's going to tell us the truth. We need a leader who's going to stand up and tell us what we need to do, even when it's unpopular, even when it might be something we don't want to hear. It is so important. We have an opportunity coming out of this crisis to rebuild our city. We have to rebuild our city. We have no choice. And we have an opportunity now with Maya Wiley to rebuild our city based on our values. The values of inclusion, equity, and opportunity, so that all of our children, all of our grandchildren, future generations can live in a better city than we inherited. So I'm so thankful to be here today. I'm so grateful to Maya and her family for taking on this challenge, because it's not going to be easy, but I'm thrilled to be here today to endorse Maya Wiley for next mayor of New York.